Welcome back to Nintendo Academy. I am Mike Perez, and today we are going to do a comparison between the Nintendo Switch OLED and the regular Nintendo Switch. If we are just meeting, I am Mike Perez, and here at Nintendo Academy, we cover everything Nintendo, including breaking news just like this new Nintendo Switch and a lot of other Nintendo goodness. So consider subscribing and clicking that bell so you don't miss another Nintendo Academy video. Hey, subscribing is free. All right, guys. Just to let you know, today we are going to be comparing these two consoles together. The Nintendo Switch OLED, which is the name that I gave it just to separate the names because they're both Nintendo Switch. So we have the Nintendo Switch OLED versus the Nintendo Switch, and we'll throw in the Nintendo Switch Lite as well. The first thing we're going to do is go over the physical part of the Nintendo Switch. How it looks, screen size, resolution, colors, and a whole bunch of other things. And then we'll go into the internal specs of the Switch, and we'll compare each Switch to make sure that we know and we have all the information we need to make the best choice, whether we want to buy that Nintendo Switch that's coming in October, or we want to buy the Nintendo Switch that is currently available now, which, by the way, will be a lot easier to get now that the new Nintendo Switch is on its way. Before we get too deep into the specs and comparison, first I want to give my opinion on this Nintendo Switch. Yeah, we don't have a 4K resolution, or at least they're not advertising it just yet, but who's to say that we won't get that in the future? And I've seen a lot of people giving their opinions, and of course they're entitled to their opinions on the Nintendo Switch and how they're let down because it doesn't have this or that. And I've been saying since the very beginning, the Nintendo Switch right now looks fantastic when you play in dock mode. And of course, people are super happy when they're playing it handheld, whether it be the Nintendo Switch Lite or the Nintendo Switch. So, in my opinion, I have nothing to complain about this new model. It is a brand new model, and I'm pretty sure once we have it in our hands and we see the brand new OLED screen, we'll be happy with it. So now let's get into Nintendo Switch OLED versus Nintendo Switch. Okay, so let's go over the Nintendo Switch OLED. It says here, the new Switch system features a vibrant 7-inch OLED screen, a wide adjustable stand, and a dock with a wired LAN port, 64 gigabytes of internal storage, and enhanced audio. So let's go ahead and do a side-by-side comparison on all Nintendo Switches here. So for the Nintendo Switch OLED model, we have it at $349.99. We have the Nintendo Switch at $299.99, and this is the price in the US. And then we have the Nintendo Switch Lite at $199.99. Let's go over to play modes. As expected, the Nintendo Switch OLED is compatible, of course, with TV mode, which is on the dock. The Nintendo Switch also has TV mode, and the Nintendo Switch Lite is handheld mode only. One of the best things here is that all Nintendo Switch games are compatible with this brand new Nintendo Switch. Now, if we take a look at this here, you see it says all Nintendo Switch games star, that little star sign in the corner. That'll tell you that things might change, and there's more information that should be researched after this. So the Nintendo Switch OLED comes with a set of Joy-Con controllers. Joy-Con controllers include the HD Rumble and IR motion camera. The same for the Nintendo Switch, and the Nintendo Switch Lite does not come with the extra Joy-Cons, but they're attached to it. Now let's look at the dock. Now for the dock. So the Nintendo Switch OLED includes a Nintendo Switch dock and HDMI cable. Docking the system allows video output to a TV. Dock also has a built-in wired LAN port for if you want to connect your internet with a wire to make sure you have a better connection. The regular Nintendo Switch has a regular dock as well and outputs to TV, but does not have that LAN port. And of course, the Nintendo Switch Lite does not even have a dock. Let's go over to the Nintendo Switch itself and over the dimensions. So how about the side-by-side dimensions of all Nintendo Switches? We have the Nintendo Switch OLED at 4 inches high, 9.5 inches long, and 0.55 inches deep with Joy-Cons attached, compared to the Nintendo Switch at 4 inches high, 9.4 inches long, and 0.55 inches deep, which if you see here, the Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch OLED are exactly the same size when it comes to the body of the Switch with the Joy-Cons attached, compared to the Nintendo Switch Lite at 3.6 inches high, 8.2 inches long, and 0.55 inches deep. So all three Switches, when it comes to the depth of the Switch, they're exactly the same size there. How about the weight? We see here that the Nintendo Switch OLED is actually 0.93 pounds with Joy-Con controllers attached, compared to approximately 0.88 pounds with Joy-Cons attached to the Nintendo Switch. So the Nintendo Switch OLED is actually heavier than the rest of the Nintendo Switch lineup. The screen size for the Nintendo Switch OLED is a 7.0 inch OLED touchscreen, compared to the 6.2 LCD touchscreen on the Nintendo Switch and the 5.5 LCD touchscreen on the Nintendo Switch Lite. How about the storage for these three models? The Nintendo Switch OLED has 64 gigabytes of internal storage. You get double the storage from the regular Nintendo Switch, which is 32 gigabytes, and also on the Lite, which also has 32 gigabytes of space. Let's go over to battery life. Well, the Nintendo Switch OLED has 4.5 to 9 hours of battery life. And if you see here below, it says the battery life will depend on the games you play. For instance, the battery will last approximately 5.5 hours for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So it basically has the same exact battery life as a regular Nintendo Switch. And of course, it depends on the games you play, compared to the 3 hours to 7 hours on the Switch Lite. And let's go over to game compatibility. Nintendo Switch OLED model. So it says here the Nintendo Switch OLED model is compatible with the full library of Nintendo Switch games. However, the system will not cleanly fit within all design perimeters of the Nintendo Labo series. There may also be games where the game experience may differ due to the new capabilities of the console, such as a larger screen size. So this basically explains those little stars that have in the corner. When you play a game on the Nintendo Switch, that means that Nintendo didn't really kind of push developers to provide games for the full resolution of the screen when played in handheld mode. So there might be games where you would see the little black bars on each side. That's what basically what they're telling you here about certain games looking differently on the Nintendo Switch OLED. Alright, so that is everything on the outside of the Switch, and now we are going to go ahead and talk about the internal specs of each console, just to compare side by side and see if something is different on one than it is on the other Switches. Let's go ahead and dive right in. We have already gone over the screen size on the Nintendo Switch OLED. Let's go down to the weight. The Nintendo Switch OLED, of course, is a little heavier than the rest of the Nintendo Switch lineup. We have the screen, of course, which is the 7.0 OLED screen, 1280 over 720. The Nintendo Switch OLED has a NVIDIA custom Tegra processor. For storage, 64 gigabytes, and in this one you can actually expand up to 2 terabytes of memory, and of course the SD is sold separately. So on paper, as we see here, the internals of the Nintendo Switch are basically around the same, and basically we have the OLED screen on the Nintendo Switch OLED, when you have it on handheld mode, that's when you can enjoy it. Or if you're using it on tabletop mode, you have a bigger screen to play on. When you dock it, it's going to be exactly the same as your regular Nintendo Switch. Now, if you care about that OLED screen, then yeah, go ahead and go reach out for that OLED Nintendo Switch. If not, let me tell you, it's going to be so much easier for you to grab a Nintendo Switch regular model, whether it be the Mario Edition, the Monster Hunter Rise, the Animal Crossing, or any other model that you like. It'll be so much easier for you to grab one of those as well. And then, of course, if you want just to play handheld mode, you can always go for that Nintendo Switch Lite. To me, this is good news. We have good news across the board. Now we have a choice whether you want to go ahead and go for the OLED screen. In my case, I don't know if you knew, but I am legally blind. I would actually love to have that 7-inch OLED screen so that I can start playing on handheld mode. I normally do not play games on handheld mode just because of the screen size, but with the bigger screen, there might be a chance that I can actually go ahead and play that handheld mode. And I cannot wait to go ahead and test this new console out. Now, what can Nintendo do to improve our experience with the Nintendo Switch? And I mean all three consoles. The first thing that Nintendo can do is enable Bluetooth so that we can go ahead and pair our headsets to the Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch already has Bluetooth 4.1, and we need Nintendo to just release an update on where we can actually pair our headphones to our Nintendo Switch. Not only do we need to pair our headphones when we play on handheld mode, but also when we dock it to the TV. It'll be awesome if Nintendo can give us that Bluetooth capability, since it already has the hardware within the Nintendo Switch. And we need that Bluetooth, Nintendo. So if you can go ahead and give us that update, it'll be awesome. We will be happy, having the experience of actually listening to our Nintendo Switch games with full surround on our favorite headphones. And what's next for Nintendo after the Nintendo Switch OLED? Well, we'll look forward to the next Nintendo console. All right, guys, that is it for this comparison between the Nintendo Switch OLED and the Nintendo Switch. Thank you so much for watching this video. I am Mike Perez with Nintendo Academy.